My name is Bree Scott, and this is More Than a Game. Why sports facilities are key to adolescent social development and the health of our environment. Approximately 727,000 people commit suicide every year. And furthermore, over 30,000 of those deaths are due to depression and loneliness. So my research question is, should local communities invest in travel sports facilities to help mitigate loneliness and help build physical and mental strength in the lives of teens and children, as well as for renovating old buildings and repurposing them in order to help our environment and to cherish nature? My connection to my stimulus is Stimulus 1, which is exploring the role of coffee shops in urban lives, which talks about the importance of third places in community. Stimulus 2 is our epidemic of loneliness and isolation, which talks about how teens, children, adults, and elderly all struggle with loneliness and depression as they grow up, and how technology ruins the amount of third places and connections built in our lives today. And then how roads have transformed the natural world, which talks about industrialization and how it is harming nature and animals. My first claim is that club and travel sports programs should be instituted because sports support teenagers' physical and cognitive health. A claim from the National Institute of Medicine talks about how children and teens need at least 60 minutes of physical or intense physical activity a day in order to maintain their health, and how as children grow older and they enter into their teenage years, they tend to stop having this physical activity and they tend to lack a lot in the physical aspects. So by instituting these sports facilities, teens can find a place where they can go and build their physical health and have community. And for the cognitive aspects, sports help to build cognitive functions and to help teens and children from an academic standpoint. My second claim is that repurposing buildings can help animals, the environment, and save money. A claim from the World Economic Forum talks about how adaptive reuse is a well-established practice that takes repurposing or takes already existing buildings and repurposes them into more functional buildings, which can generate money and help save the environment. And then through repurposing buildings and using adaptive reuse, businesses can gain money from grants and funds from the government. My third claim is that team sports improve mental health and prevent loneliness by creating social connections. This is another quote from the National Institute of Medicine, and it talks about how being surrounded by people and playing sports with people can cause teens to immerse themselves in social connections all over the place, and can help them to grow strong connections by being with those people all the time. And then this one talks about how social connections through sports can be generated through families watching sports, the people playing sports, and the people who you watch sports with. So sports can generate all kinds of social connections. Some of the alternative solutions that I found were after-school programs. It's an extension of school where teens can go and find community and do some of the things that they like to do. Another solution that I found was third place variety, where instead of generating specifically sports facilities, we can repurpose these buildings into arcades, movie theaters, things like that, where teens can go and find community in all different aspects. Some of the implications that I found with after-school programs is that it tends to seem like an extension of school and a longer second place rather than a whole new third place, and it ruins the fun aspect of it all for the teens. And so instead of feeling like they're doing something that they love, they feel like they're being forced into another school activity. And then another issue that I found within the third place variety is that not only do the teens not get their physical needs met, but they tend the connections that are built in these third places tend to be more shallow rather than a deep, long-lasting connection that could be found in playing sports. Some of the limitations within my own solution is that the funding for the facilities can be an issue when taking into account the repurposing buildings. You can save money, but it's also hard to find the money to repurpose these buildings. And so how I combat that issue is by applying for special grants from the government or partnering with credible creative investors who can help you further your business and also fund some of the equipment and the needs that are necessary for these specific solutions. These are evidences for the previous statements. And so to conclude, teens and children need to be a priority. Their communities need to be top priority so they don't grow up and have to deal with loneliness and isolation, and so that they don't have to become a statistic as stated in the beginning of the presentation. Another priority needs to be nature. When trying to solve the problem of loneliness and isolation in the lives of teens and children, we can't completely disregard animals and nature and their community that is being ruined by building new things and all the industrialization that is happening to them. So not only do we need to prioritize teens, children, and nature, but we need to prioritize community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so I have some follow-up questions. Thank you for sharing your presentation. As you were researching, did you come across evidence that you gathered but then chose not to include? And for what reason did you decide to exclude that evidence?
I think some of the evidence that I found it was evidence to back up why generalization of third places wouldn't be a viable solution. It was just another source on why the connections are shallow and why sports teams would be a better solution. It's a book called Bowling Alone, and it talks about how the shallow connections can do more damage than good.
Oh, okay, thank you. And one more question. As you were researching, did you, sorry, getting my eyes to focus here. What additional questions emerged as you researched? Why are some of these questions important? In other words, what new information came to light that if you have more time you might pursue?
Some additional questions. Probably would be, if I had to do some additional research, it would be how to include adults and elderly into the solution, because it does focus more on children, teens, and nature. But I know that some adults and elderly people can struggle with loneliness and isolation as well. So I probably, if I had more time and more space in the argument, it would probably be trying to find out how I can also cater to the needs of the adults and elderly in the solution.
Thank you so much.